The neighborhood where I lived was the kind that featured in feel-good movies. Houses with manicured lawns, friendly neighbors who knew each other's names, and children's laughter echoing through the streets. It was picturesque, almost unnervingly so. But there was an oddity, a peculiarity that everyone seemed to overlook, or maybe they chose to ignore it. It was the ice cream truck. Every Friday evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the familiar jingle of the ice cream truck would meander through our streets. It was an old, slightly rusted vehicle, with paint peeling off in places. The tune it played was cheerful, yet there was something about it that I could never put my finger on. Something unsettling. I was a curious teenager with an affinity for puzzles and mysteries. This particular enigma had always intrigued me. I noticed that nobody, not even myself, could remember the tune once the truck turned the corner and left our street. It was as if the melody slipped through our minds like water through fingers, leaving no trace behind. One day, sitting on my front porch with my friends Sam and Riley, I brought it up. "Have you guys ever noticed that you can't remember the ice cream truck's tune?" I asked, watching their faces. Sam, always the skeptic, laughed it off at first, but then his expression changed as he tried and failed to recall the melody. Riley, quieter but observant, nodded in agreement, her brow furrowed in thought. "It's weird, right?" I continued, my curiosity piqued. "I mean, how can a tune we've heard countless times just vanish from our memory?" The three of us sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of this anomaly settling in. It was then that we decided to investigate, to unravel this small mystery of our otherwise ordinary neighborhood. We made a plan to record the tune the following Friday, unaware of the strange path this investigation would lead us down. Little did we know, this was just the beginning of a series of events that would shroud our neighborhood in a veil of mystery and unease. The week dragged by with the slow crawl of anticipation. I couldn't shake off the feeling of being on the cusp of uncovering something significant. Sam and Riley were equally engrossed in the mystery, and we spent the week discussing theories and possibilities. Finally, Friday arrived, and with it, a sense of nervous excitement. We gathered near my house, each of us armed with a recording device, a phone, a digital recorder, and even an old tape recorder that Riley had found in her attic. We waited, the evening air filled with the distant sounds of children playing, and the occasional bark of a neighborhood dog. Then, as the sky began to turn a dusky purple, we heard the faint, jolly jingle of the ice cream truck approaching. The truck turned onto our street, its familiar, slightly haunting melody growing louder. I pressed record on my phone, a sense of triumph rising in me. But as the truck drew near, my phone screen flickered and went black. I stared at it in disbelief, pressing buttons frantically. "It's not working," I said, my voice tinged with frustration. Sam, next to me, was having similar issues. "Mine too," he said, shaking his digital recorder as if that would fix it. Riley, looking equally perplexed, held up her tape recorder, its reel spinning uselessly, recording nothing. "It's like the tune is unrecordable," Riley murmured, her voice laced with a mix of awe and apprehension. The truck passed by us, the driver, a shadowy figure barely visible through the tinted window, seemingly oblivious to our attempts. As it turned the corner, the tune faded, and once again, we were left with no tangible memory of it. In the days that followed, we tried various methods to capture the tune, but each attempt was met with inexplicable interruptions or technical malfunctions. Our frustration grew, but so did our determination. I began to notice other odd occurrences around the neighborhood. Mrs. Patterson's cat, usually so placid, hissed and spat at unseen things. Mr. Thompson, who had lived in the neighborhood longer than anyone, seemed unusually forgetful, often wandering the streets with a bewildered expression. The air in the neighborhood felt charged, heavy with an unspoken tension. It was as if the very atmosphere was being influenced by the elusive tune of the ice cream truck. I couldn't help but feel that we were on the brink of uncovering something far more profound and unsettling than any of us had imagined. The mystery of the ice cream truck's tune began to consume my thoughts. It wasn't just the melody that was unmemorable, it was as if the tune itself had a power, an influence that extended beyond mere forgetfulness. Sam, Riley, and I spent hours discussing it, our conversations veering between logical explanations and wild speculations. As the days passed, the neighborhood's oddities grew more pronounced. Pets behaved erratically, their owners increasingly agitated. The once friendly chats between neighbors dwindled, replaced by hushed, anxious whispers. Each Friday, we continued our attempts to capture the tune, but to no avail. It was as if the truck was cloaked in an invisible shield that thwarted all our efforts. The frustration was maddening. More disturbingly, I began to feel watched, as if unseen eyes were observing our every move. One afternoon, as I walked home from school, I noticed something peculiar. The neighborhood, usually bustling with activity, was eerily quiet. The silence was oppressive, unnatural. As I passed the Johnson's house, I caught sight of something that made my blood run cold. Mr. Johnson was standing in his front yard, staring blankly at his house. His expression was one of confusion and fear, as if he no longer recognized his own home. Riley and Sam had similar stories. People forgetting where they lived, wandering the streets as if lost in their own neighborhood. And always, the sense of something lurking just out of sight, a presence that we couldn't quite identify. Our focus shifted from merely recording the tune to understanding its influence on our neighborhood. We started documenting everything, every odd behavior, every strange occurrence. We were no longer dealing with a simple mystery. This was something bigger, something darker. The climax of our investigation came unexpectedly. It was a Friday like any other, the ice cream truck making its usual rounds. We had given up on trying to record the tune, our efforts now focused on observing the truck and its driver. As the truck approached, the tune playing as cheerfully as ever, something within me snapped. I needed answers. Without thinking, I stepped off the curb and walked towards the truck. Sam and Riley called after me, but their voices seemed distant, muffled by the overpowering melody. The driver noticed me approaching and slowed to a stop. He was an old man, his skin ashen, with deep-set eyes that seemed to bore into my soul. His smile was unsettling, too wide, revealing a row of yellow teeth. I need to know, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. What is this tune? What are you doing to our neighborhood? His smile widened, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something dark and malevolent in his eyes. He beckoned me closer with a gnarled finger. Would you like to see inside? He asked, his voice a raspy whisper. The back of the truck was open, revealing the interior. Instead of the usual array of ice creams and popsicles, there were containers labeled with names I didn't recognize. Names that evoked feelings of dread and unease. As I peered inside, the tune enveloped me, louder and more insistent. It was as if the melody itself was alive, wrapping around my mind, seeping into my very being. I felt dizzy, disoriented, as if the world around me was spinning out of control. Riley and Sam grabbed me, pulling me back from the edge of an abyss I hadn't even realized I was teetering on. We stumbled away from the truck, the melody still echoing in our ears, a haunting refrain that refused to be silenced. The encounter with the ice cream truck and its enigmatic driver left us shaking. As we retreated from the truck, the melody still reverberating in our minds, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. The familiar streets of our neighborhood felt foreign, as if we had stepped into an alternate reality where nothing quite made sense. In the days following, the impact of that haunting tune became increasingly apparent. The neighborhood was unraveling, its once serene atmosphere now laced with an undercurrent of madness. People wandered the streets at all hours, their expressions vacant, as if they were searching for something they couldn't quite remember. I found myself plagued by nightmares, each more vivid and unsettling than the last. I would wake in the dead of night, drenched in sweat, the remnants of the tune playing in the back of my mind like a sinister lullaby. Sam and Riley confessed to similar experiences, their once skeptical attitudes replaced by a growing sense of dread. We realized that the tune wasn't just unmemorable, it was like a virus, infecting our thoughts, eroding our sense of reality. The more we tried to understand it, the more it seemed to slip away, leaving in its wake a trail of confusion and fear. Our investigation, once driven by curiosity, had become a desperate search for answers. We scoured old newspapers, interviewed longtime residents, and even tried to track down previous owners of the ice cream truck, but every lead ended in a dead end. It was as if the truck and its mysterious tune existed outside of time and reality, untouched by the normal rules of existence. The neighborhood's decline accelerated. People's behavior grew more erratic, their memories increasingly fragmented. It was as if the tune was erasing parts of themselves, leaving hollow shells where once there had been vibrant individuals. In a final, desperate attempt to find answers, we decided to confront the driver again. We waited for the truck on a Friday evening, our resolve steeling us against the fear that gnawed at our insides. But the truck never came. Instead, the neighborhood fell into a deep, unnatural silence. It was as if the absence of the tune was more oppressive than its presence had ever been. A collective amnesia seemed to descend upon the residents, the events of the past weeks fading into a fog of forgetfulness. We watched as the neighborhood slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy, but it was a hollow, eerie calm. The laughter of children no longer echoed through the streets, and neighbors passed each other with wary, uncertain glances. The sense of community that had once been the heart of our neighborhood had been irrevocably altered. As for us, we were left with a lingering sense of loss, an unshakable feeling that something vital had been taken from us, something we could no longer remember. The tune, though gone, continued to haunt the edges of our consciousness, a ghostly melody that refused to be silenced. The days turned into weeks, and the ice cream truck, along with its haunting tune, became a distant, unsettling memory. Our neighborhood had changed, the once vibrant community was now shrouded in a veil of silent confusion. People went about their lives, but there was a noticeable lack of warmth, a missing vibrancy that the tune had seemingly taken with it. Sam, Riley, and I found ourselves drifting apart, not out of disagreement or dislike, but out of an unspoken mutual understanding that something within us had shifted. We had touched a mystery too vast and too dark for our understanding, and in its wake, we were left altered, our perspectives on life irrevocably changed. I would often find myself walking the streets in the evening, half expecting to hear the jingle of the ice cream truck, but it never came. The neighborhood was silent, save for the occasional distant sound of a television or the bark of a dog. It was as if the truck had vanished into thin air, leaving no trace behind, except for the lingering effects on those who had heard its tune. The sense of paranoia never completely left me. I would catch myself glancing over my shoulder, a feeling of being watched creeping over me. The tune would sometimes play at the edges of my dreams, a ghostly whisper that faded as soon as I tried to grasp it. I couldn't shake off the feeling that we had only glimpsed the surface of something much deeper, much more sinister. The truck, its driver, the tune, they were all parts of a puzzle that we had failed to solve, a mystery that continued to loom over our neighborhood, unseen but ever present. Months passed, and life slowly returned to a new normal. But the atmosphere in the neighborhood was different, a subtle undercurrent of fear and unease lingered. Conversations were shorter, smiles were strained, and a general sense of wariness pervaded the air. As for the ice cream truck, it became a topic that was silently agreed upon to be left undiscussed, a shared experience that we all chose to forget. But in the quiet moments, when the world around me stilled, I couldn't help but wonder about the forgotten melody, about the memories it had taken, and the secrets it still held. The story of the ice cream truck and its enigmatic tune became a part of the neighborhood's lore, a whispered tale of caution and mystery. And though the truck was gone, the feeling it left behind lingered. The tune, though forgotten, remained a haunting presence, a reminder of the mysteries that lie just beneath the surface of our seemingly ordinary lives. And sometimes, in the depths of the night, I would find myself listening for a melody that I could never quite remember, a tune that had vanished from memory, but it left an indelible mark on my soul. It was out there somewhere, I was sure of it, waiting in the shadows, its secrets forever just out of reach.